This is going to be a review and demonstration of the Browning Outdoorsman Model 231 axe. Currently, it's mostly found on sale for about $50. I picked this one up for $35 on Devor a couple years ago. It's been a competent performer, but I think I'd go over some of the quirks about it, as well as some of the strong and weak points of it. The most notable thing about the head of the axe is its prominent beard. Pretty uncommon in modern axes. This allows you to choke up on the axe for game processing, I'm told, although that's not something I use this axe for. But it seems to be either a Hudson Bay style or just a plain bearded axe. It's got a prominent belly. It has not shown to be a hindrance in any of the chopping that I do, although if you require a more flat blade, it may be a concern. The head is supposed to be made out of 1055 tool steel. Judging by a spark test I did, and of course spark tests are not conclusive, nor is my eye that honed in, it appears to be a mid-carbon or high-carbon steel, so 1055 seems about right. It's a good choice for an axe head. It also claims to be 50 to 55 Rockwell, I assume Rockwell C, and that seems to be right as well. When I sharpened the blade initially and set the initial bevel, I set it too narrow, about 25 degrees included angle. That started rolling in some fairly soft wood. I opened up the angle to about a 35 degree included angle, and it's held just fine with no sign of any sort of untoward deflection. You will note that the blade is very narrow. This makes it a very good slicer. It cuts through wood very easily. However, one of the problems you'll see is that it sometimes does get stuck pretty easily. And I think that's where many people's problem with it arises. Not so much in the getting stuck, but in the fact that wedging it out will put a lot of stress on this portion of the handle where it will snap eventually. One thing to note as well is that this will be very difficult to rehandle because the eye is not the standard size. So it would require some woodwork to get a standardized axe handle, boy's axe handle, to work inside there. The other thing to note is the handle, which is made out of polymer. There is a wood version available, that's the 231W. However, this one is injection molded polypropylene over what I believe is a fiberglass core. You can sort of see through the slits in the side. I'm not sure what the slits designate, whether or not that's a new design, an old design. A lot of the photographs on websites show them without the slits. I don't know what advantage they confer. They don't appear to have any effect on the chopping ability of it, as it works both both as a one-hand or two-handed axe. It should also be noted that there's a palm swell toward the center here. Makes it very easy to choke up on, use it as a hatchet. It's also quite easy to swing it by the base of the axe one-handed, as well as normal two-handed use. The quality of the handle is pretty good considering it's injection molded. The parting line, you can barely see a little bit here, is almost impossible to feel when you're running your hand across it. It actually takes some doing to get your fingernail underneath it, or at least alongside it, and feel it. But it's very, very diminished, not a problem at all. Some injection molded axes I've felt have had parting lines that feel like they could cut your glove open. This one is not the case. It's very well made. The halves of the molding are not mismatched at all. They fit perfectly together, and it just works very well. Works very well as a handle. I was much less pleased with the finish of the head of the axe. As you can see, I don't know if you can see, the finish of the surface is about a 36 grit belt. Very rough with a gray almost metallic-esque paint applied over top. Now the paint was applied evenly and attractively. There are no runs or sags. You can see it sort of scraping off toward the middle of the blade here. And it's also wearing thin along the cutting edge area. But yeah, it's a very rough finish. The edges are not sharp, but they are roughly dehorned. The edge, when I first got it, was terrible. It was incomplete. It was only sanded to about a 60 grit finish, I'd imagine. The bevels were incomplete. It was very dull, very blunt. I've gone back over it, ground it up to about 1,000 grit on the belt grinder, and then stropped it out with a chromium oxide loaded strop. And it is a very good cutting machine, very good slicing. And as you'll see in the demonstration portion of this, it cuts through wood without problem, and it holds its edge just fine. And the final thing to talk about is the included sheath. It's a small ballistic nylon affair. I don't know if it's ballistic nylon, but it's nylon stitched together, single stitched, not terrible. There's no apparent welt in the center though, so there is some hazard of the blade coming in contact with the rivets. I don't know if that's ever going to become a problem. It has not become a problem so far, but it's a simple affair. Slides over the blade, snaps in place, and it actually is a pretty good way of carrying it. Nice and light. The entire package is pretty good for carrying around on a backpack. It's also good for light chores in the yard, downed branches, even some larger trees that need to be taken apart. This is a very good axe to have. So the question might arise, is this axe worth the money? Would I buy it again? And the answer is a conditional yes. For $50, I think it's overpriced. $35 seems just about right. There are a number of competitive axes that I'd like to get my hands on. Council Tool makes a boy's axe in this size. Cold Steel has the Trail Boss, which is similar size and shape. So if you can find it for in the $30 to $40 range, it might be a competitive axe for you. Otherwise, I'd hold off on purchasing it. It's not a bad axe. I've had a good time using it. It works very well in the applications that I've used it for, but I just don't think it's going to have the same value that another axe might. Out here doing trail maintenance. Found a old tree, dead tree that's over the trail. It's probably 6 inches in diameter. We use the axe. Got it sharpened up here, and should be ready to go. Give you a demonstration of how well it chops, even on some fairly large stock. One of the problems I'm finding with it is that it's so sharp and so fine that it has a tendency to really stick on a good strong shot, taking some effort to get it out. But it is, as you can see, a pretty deep cutter. Now, unfortunately, I've already removed some of the heavier branches off this stump using the axe, and they were just one hits for something about 1.25 inches in diameter. But I forgot to get those on film, so I'm going to try just taking these 1-inch limbs off right about here. No problem. And then, no, I don't know if you can see the one up top. No. That. Alright, 2-hitter on that one.